Hello folks, hope you're having a nice day. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some of the other stuff I've been doing outside of the channel and also give you a rundown of some of the movies I've seen that I haven't been able to work into reviews. I haven't really talked about it before, but I run a production company with a friend of mine called mannnnyy Pictures, and we've kind of officially launched now. We recently made a film for a brand which I'm lucky to have had some contact with and feel kind of like proud about my associations with, which is the Barbican. If you remember in my last update video, I was talking about a scheme I was doing at the Barbican called the Young Film Programmers. We went and made a film for the Barbican Young Visual Arts Group, which I'll put a link to in the description down below. It was really nice to kind of have an opportunity to work with other young artists like myself and people who are doing lots of really interesting stuff and maybe haven't found out exactly what's theirs yet, but are working it out. It's also an amazing brand to be associated with business-wise, so that was a real plus. And hey, look, if you want any video, just let me know. Don't really want to do the business hustle thing with you guys, so don't worry about that. You're all good. Use some other companies. I also got my own Vimeo channel where you can see some of the stuff I've done that isn't really appropriate for Indietrix. I'll put a link in the description for that as well, so you can see that stuff. That's where all my new short films are going to go up. Indietrix no longer really is going to host shorts, with the exception of stuff like Netflix and Breakup, which was a really good, really fun project to work on. And speaking of short films, I made another movie with the lovely Phoebe Nightingale, who is my creative partner and also my girlfriend, which is a great thing. We made a film called Pip, which is sort of an abstract drama that looks at the relationship between a mother-to-be and her mother, who is now dead. She kind of remembers a period of time in her life when she was a child and with her mum a lot, and tries to draw solace and understanding about how she'll be a mother and accept motherhood without her own mother to look at for guidance. We showed that at the Barbican as part of the Young Visual Arts Group, and it was a really fulfilling experience. It was really nice to see a lot of viewers, in particular women, connecting with the film on a very personal level, and a couple of people approached Phoebe afterwards and talked to her about their experiences of losing their mum or being pregnant. It was really moving, really touching. And for me as a film as well, I was quite happy with it, technically speaking. We had very little money and very little time. It was all shot in like a day. But we did a lot of stuff with vintage lenses and with new digital lenses to kind of delineate two different time periods. A lot of that work really paid off. We're also lucky to have a load of amazing storyboards done by Phoebe, because she's an illustrator, so visual work is her whole like bread and butter, and she did like a whole set of full color storyboards, which was an amazing gift and a really fun thing to have, to be a part of. I've been working on another video which is really high production value, sort of in the vein of the stuff I've done around trash film, so like blaxploitation and giallo and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I got my dates wrong for when I was going to publish it, so I'm now waiting for another time when it's right, but the film's done and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you folks think of it. It's about an iconic horror actor, and it's been a lot of research. I read his biography and I went and watched all of his films and bought and captured all of his films, and ultimately had a really good time with making that video. So I wanted to ask you if there's a kind of subject you wanted to see a long-form video on. At the moment, we're planning to do some videos about film genres and famous directors. I also have always wanted to do a video series about what I feel like are kind of underappreciated films that have maybe gone by the wayside but are fantastic, and those will be genre films, so sci-fi and horror. We've recently invested in a new capturing setup for HD content, so we can do much more stuff with like Blu-rays. So hopefully you'll see an uptick in the quality of the video that's in there that isn't just shot video like this. Hope you enjoy that, for you tech nerds out there like me. And so without further ado, I want to tell you about some of the other films that I've seen in the last couple of months. So this is a kind of nice way for me to talk more personally to you and let you know about some of the stuff I've watched that I really enjoyed, but I might have not had a chance to tell you about. So The Final Girls. This is a movie that I'd had on my radar for a while because I'd seen a really cool shot from it in a GIF on the filmmakers subreddit. It's really good fun, it's very poppy, it just doesn't quite land what it should land. That said, it's got a really cool soundtrack and it's amazing fun for anyone who's interested in the kind of old 80s slasher type movie. It's a really good pastiche of those, with obviously a lot of thought, care and attention put into it. Bobby Fischer Against the World. This is a story I've been interested in for a while. I used to play a lot of chess as a kid. It's a documentary about Bobby Fischer, a world chess champion, and just kind of like how fucked up he was as a dude, basically. You know, it's one of those things where the documentary is about a really interesting subject, and it is a subject you don't often hear that much about anymore, but at the same time they approach it in a way that is not that visually exciting. It's a lot of talking heads. Lost Highway is a David Lynch film that I'd actually never seen, which is kind of a rare thing for me because I'm a big fan of David Lynch, and luckily enough he's kind of having a bit of a renaissance in the film screening market in the UK at the moment. So we had an Inland Empire 35mm screening, and there's a couple more going on in London. So if you're looking to get into David Lynch, now is the time, especially with Twin Peaks coming back. It's a bit of a weird thing when you've got a director who's got a really long career. They can end up making essentially a better version of that film like a couple of years down the line. So when Lynch made Mulholland Drive, that feels really similar in some ways to Lost Highway, but because Lost Highway came first, it's less developed and kind of more experimental than a lot of Lynch's work, which is saying a lot. It's worth a watch, and it's a really fascinating film. I just wouldn't put it as Lynch's best. You know, Lynch's middling is better than most people. The Conspiracy. This is a found footage movie that I'd seen recommended on loads of lists of like the best found footage movies. Sort of struggled to see why exactly. It was a pretty boring found footage movie. It was pretty straight down the line. Didn't have anything special that kind of marked it out. Conspiracy theories for me are a little bit of a hard watch sometimes because I really don't believe in conspiracy theories by and large. I think most of them are complete trash and not true. But I know a lot about them because when I was a kid, I was kind of obsessed with them. A lot of conspiracy movies are kind of like this, where they say, oh, but what if this was true? You're kind of misrepresenting something that a lot of people do think is real. And I think that's morally wrong to do that in a way unless you make it very clear. And obviously it being a found footage movie, it tries to play on that, but doesn't really do enough with it to actually make it that interesting. Yeah, kind of not worth watching. Gone Girl. I'm currently thinking about doing a video about David Fincher, and I was recommended this film over and over again. A lot of people think it's his best movie. To be honest, I really didn't get the fuss. I think it was pretty dull. Not the best example of his work. The acting was okay, some people were better than others. It's very good looking, but then of course all of Fincher's movies are because Cronenberg knows what he's doing. Like I was saying, Lost Highway was kind of a worse version of Mulholland Drive because it came first. This almost felt like the opposite because it felt like a less good version of Zodiac. You know, they're both crime movies that are quite long and are more about the process of a crime and the understanding behind it more than something schlocky. But Zodiac is a much more interesting film and has a lot more authentic performances in it. This did not feel like vintage Fincher. The Seventh Sign. This movie is bullshit. This was really bad. I should have trusted my instincts and not watched it, but it was on Netflix and I didn't know what else to see, so I'm really sorry. I could have spent this time watching a good film. It has an interesting central premise, which is basically, spoilers, that Jesus, if he came back to Earth, would actually be really spooky. It's like an inverse religious horror, this, I guess, but that's not an interesting enough premise in itself to carry a movie, and then they don't make anything out of it. It's so dull. Oh. God. Della Morte Della More. I got this on my birthday 2 years ago. I just recently watched it. It's kind of an infamous movie because it's been praised by a lot of big people in the industry. It's an Italian horror film from the 90s, and it sort of touches on a kind of existentialist and absurdist themes. I didn't like it that much. I thought it was kind of fitfully visually inventive. It had some interesting imagery in it here and there. But, you know, shooting something really creatively is just not enough to sustain a film. And on top of that, there was a lot of quite problematic stuff about sexual politics that I think just has not aged well. Probably going to say give this one a miss. Kingsman, The Secret Service. I'd heard a lot about this film. I'd seen the trailers and thought it looked kind of dumb, so I'd given it a miss. Then I heard good things about it, so I thought maybe I'll make some time for that. Lo and behold, I was lying in bed feeling a bit sorry for myself, a little bit ill, and I thought this was the perfect time to sit and watch Kingsman. I really enjoyed the film. I surprised myself of how much I enjoyed it. I thought there were some amazing sequences in it. Obviously the church sequence is great, but like the ending of the film is fantastic as well. It's kind of Matthew Vaughn at his best. It's like caricature characters, but they're well drawn. Like, you know enough about them for the movie to kind of pop along, and it keeps a tone kind of consistently throughout that I think is quite an interesting one. It's like basically rebooting the 60s shitty spy movie. Is it good enough to sustain a sequel? I don't know, but it has given me enough interest that I'll go and see it. During that aforementioned I'm feeling a bit ill and a bit sorry for myself period, I also watched Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, which was like a kind of icon when I was a teenager, but that I'd never actually seen. I feel like if you look at the poster, you'll know the movie you're gonna get. And if that's what the movie you want, then I say go and see it. It's not exactly surprising, but it's not exactly terrible. I had a good time. Under the Mountain, this is a kind of young adult film that is apparently an adaptation of a semi-popular novel in New Zealand. I don't really know what semi-popular in New Zealand really translates to as far as a viewing base is concerned. It had Sam Neill in it and it had a good cover, so I thought, all right, I'll give this 30 minutes of my time, and I didn't really make it through that, to be honest with you. It was kind of really bad. I would not recommend this at all. No. Bad movie. Grand Budapest Hotel. I've been thinking about doing a video about Wes Anderson, so I thought I may as well go see this as I've never seen it. With my directing style and with the directors I like, they don't always have a very distinctive visual identity. It's more about the kind of themes that they approach and the way that they work with actors. So Wes Anderson is kind of a little bit of a tough watch for me sometimes. I feel like he often ignores the character and the story in favour of making it look really nice. That said, when he's good, he's very good, and I think this is him at his best. So if you haven't seen Grand Budapest Hotel, I highly recommend you go see it. The Haunted Palace, this is part of the American International Pictures Roger Corman Edgar Allan Poe adaptation series starring Vincent Price. Bit of a weird one because it's not actually based on Edgar Allan Poe, it's based on H.P. Lovecraft's story. I really liked it. Those movies have a kind of magic to them you don't necessarily get in movies for a lot of reasons, some of them good. But I thought the film was a good adaptation of the H.P. Lovecraft, and also it's Vincent Price at his best. I mean, how can you hate that? The Men Who Stare at Goats. I liked this film. It was fine. I feel like the problem with rating stuff with a number for criticism is that you can say 6 out of 10 and a movie can be really bad and be a 6 out of 10. And for another critic, a 6 out of 10 is genuinely just slightly better than average. That's what I'm saying. This film is slightly better than average, okay? Leprechaun. Can you tell that I was really bored at one point during this last couple of months? Leprechaun is a Jennifer Aniston starring film with Warwick Davis as a murderous leprechaun. I couldn't really work out how they were trying to play the film. Sometimes it seemed to be quite serious, sometimes it wasn't. It was very tongue-in-cheek, and the guy who made it weirdly has this like whole subgenre of films that are about fairy tale characters, but done as slashers. You know what? Hey, it's 2016. You do you. Donald Trump's president. Anything could happen. I rewatched all of the Austin Powers films with my girlfriend, who's a massive fan of them for some reason. She's literally seen more of those than she's seen Bond films, which is inexplicable to me. Austin Powers 1 is really, really funny. It's held up very well, and it's just really nicely designed. It's got a good enough plot. It's a very funny movie. It's gag-based comedy that is not afraid to be stupid, and it really lands. Austin Powers 2 is kind of dull. It feels like a rushed sequel in a lot of ways. Austin Powers 3, Goldmember, stars Beyonce, which is kind of a weird thing now, but makes perfect sense back then. But then, you know, hey, Home Alone 2 has Donald Trump in it, and now he's President of the United States of America. It's 2016, guys. It's 2016. Anything can happen. Donald Trump is president. United States of America. Goldmember really just goes all out on being a shit sequel, and for that reason sort of ends up being more fun. The Last Witch Hunter. I really enjoyed this film when I was watching it. I can't really recall that many details of it now, which says something about the quality of the film. It had a really good design to it, which I liked, and it was kind of based around building up a set of lore that I thought was a really interesting approach to witchcraft, and I've got a bit of a soft spot for witchcraft in movies, so that was a plus for me. Every other failure with it is the standard failure you get with your typical Vin Diesel movie. If you're a fan of Vin Diesel, if you like witchcraft, if you like kind of like action-adventure type movies, I think it will probably be fine. It's relatively diverting, to put it like that. That's very British of me. That's like very much damning with faint praise. It's like mildly diverting. Big Game. I really liked Big Game. I thought it was really fun and an interesting take on the action genre. It's about a young Finnish boy who has to go through a coming-of-age ceremony where he spends some time in the woods, catches an animal, and then brings it back for the men of his village to say, "You're a man now." The problem is there's also an international terrorist group trying to kill the president, and they brought down Air Force One in that same forest. So he ends up ganging up with the president, which is Samuel L. Jackson, in a really funny role. And it's just this buddy comedy that is really absurd in lots of ways, but also manages to be a proper action film as well, with good characterization. Ghostbusters 2. It's not as good as Ghostbusters 1, is it? Mr. Holmes, which is a Bill Condon movie, the guy who made Beauty and the Beast, the live-action Disney one that came out this year. It's less like Beauty and the Beast and more like one of his first movies, which is called Gods and Monsters, which is about James Whale, the man who directed the original Frankenstein movie. It was very melancholic, and it carried a tone that I thought was quite light and subtle and kind of clever. Not light in a kind of humorous sense, but just a light touch. The kind of like small elements of tone throughout, which I really enjoyed. TV-wise, Inside Number 9, Series 1, which I hadn't seen the whole of, and Series 2, which I hadn't seen the whole of either. Inside Number 9 is a really great TV show. It's an anthology comedy made by the guys who did League of Gentlemen and Psychoville. I can't explain it very well. I recommend that you just take half an hour out of your life and pick a random episode and try it out. Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Return. Basically the idea is a guy just has to sit and watch movies because he's forced to by an evil scientist. So he's built these robots who then just quip through it with him. So it's just like three guys in silhouettes making fun of a movie for 90 minutes, and you just get to sit there and watch this terrible film with them and kind of have a good time. I've been a big fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000 since I was a kid, because my godfather recorded an episode of it that was on late one night and kind of showed it to us on VHS while I was up visiting my dad. I mean, I love their comedy and I love their love of shitty films. So I really enjoyed this reboot. I felt like they had managed quite strongly to get themselves out from underneath the shadow of the original without changing stuff too much that it felt kind of weird. The other good thing about that reboot was because it was funded by Netflix, Netflix then paid for some episodes to be put on Netflix in really good quality. So you kind of got a sense of the original classic series as well. That's pretty much it from me. I think there's like a buttload of stuff that I've basically forgotten about or ignored, so my apologies for that, but you've probably heard enough about what I'm watching now. I'd love to find out more about what you're watching. If you've got any recommendations, please get in touch. I know I haven't always gone out and made a video about some of the stuff people recommended, but I always watch it, and it's really nice to find out what other people are seeing. Hope you're having a nice day, enjoy the rest of it, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye for now.